Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to troubleshoot the top 5 reasons why your gas range has little to no heat when baking. Stick around to the end of the video for some important safety tips that most people don't even know about. But before we begin, we're going to make sure the appliance is unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also make sure you turn off the gas valve at the wall. The first thing we're going to check is the oven igniter. It lights the gas in the oven. The most common type of oven igniter is the glow bar type with either a round or square body. It has a ceramic body with an element that glows hot to ignite the gas. They usually have a cage to protect the element as it's very fragile and breaks easily. They're usually mounted on the bake or broil oven burners. If your gas range has little to no heat when baking, it could be that the oven igniter is getting weak and is ready to fail. To get to the igniter, you'll have to open the oven door, remove the racks, the oven bottom, and the flame spreader. You'll first want to look at the igniter to make sure it hasn't come loose and it's mounted properly. If it isn't, it may not ignite the gas. When an igniter starts to get old, it won't glow as bright. There's a short period, as it's getting older, where the oven igniter may be able to open the oven safety valve once or twice, but then it will get too weak to open it again. So the oven might get warm, but it won't be able to hold at the set temperature. If you aren't sure, you can test how many amps it's drawing with a multimeter that has a clamp-on amp meter. Make sure it's set to amps. There are a few different designs of igniters that are rated at different amps. You have the round igniters and the blue square ones that replace some round igniters. They're used with oven safety valves that are rated at 2.5 to 3 amps. Then you have the regular square igniters that are used with valves rated at 3.3 to 3.6 amps. You can see the amp rating on the oven safety valve itself. So temporarily turn the power back on, but leave the gas off. Then clamp the amp meter around one of the wires from the igniter and turn the oven on. If the igniter isn't drawing enough amps, it'll have to be replaced. Usually the igniter will not read all the way up to 3.3 amps due to age, and they can read even less and still open the safety valve. But anything less than 3.0 for the square igniters or 2.2 for the round ones is questionable and may not open the safety valve in the required time. If the oven igniter isn't glowing at all, you can test it for continuity. In order to see if the part can carry an electric current, we have to test it with a multimeter set to continuity. Once you have it set, touch the probes together to make sure it's working. Some igniter wiring harnesses can be reached from inside the oven, but if the harness is too short to pull out and unplug, you'll have to go around to the back of the oven to access it. Unplug the igniter's wiring and touch a probe to each terminal. It should have continuity. If it doesn't, it'll have to be replaced. If you need to order a part, simply go to AppliancePartsPros.com and type in your model number. Find your part on the easy-to-read diagrams and match it to the number below. Click on the part if you want to see more pictures of the item or watch its repair video. You can also scroll down to see DIY stories from customers like you, or ask a question in the Q&A section. Once you're ready, you can add the part to your cart. It's that easy. Most orders will arrive within 2 business days. Now we can check the oven temperature sensor. It tells the control board the temperature in the oven. Oven temperature sensors are a type of resistor in which the ohms reading will change as the temperature does. They're usually a small metal rod with a mounting plate and 2 wires. Oven temperature sensors are usually mounted in the upper left or right corner of the oven, but in order to test it, you'll have to go around to the back of the range. If your gas range has little to no heat when baking, it could be because the temperature sensor is bad. The most common sensors should read around 1080 ohms at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If you aren't sure, you can always look at the tech sheet for your range. The sensor can fail in 2 ways. If the ohms reading is off, it could cause the oven temperature to be different than what you selected, or if it's totally failed and you don't get a reading at all, then the range won't start. So set your meter to ohms. Our meter automatically detects whatever ohms are coming in, but you may need to set your meter to read the proper ohm level. Once you have access to the sensor, remove the wires and touch a test probe to each terminal. If the ohms reading is way off, or you don't get a reading at all, it'll have to be replaced. Next thing to check is the oven control board. It controls the functions of the range. The oven control board is usually a computer board. It collects all the data from the sensors and switches and controls the functions of the range. It's usually mounted in the middle of the control panel on the range. If your gas range has little to no heat when baking, it could be that a relay has failed on the board and power isn't being sent to the bake igniter. There are a lot of different control boards out there, so we can't show you how to test them all. You're going to have to grab your tech sheet and follow the diagnostics or error codes to see if it's gone bad. In this example, you'd have to enter the diagnostic mode and test the bake relay to make sure it's sending power to the bake igniter. If it fails the test, you'll have to replace it. Now we can look at the oven safety valve. It's a safety device that prevents the gas from flowing to the oven burner if the igniter has failed. Oven safety valves usually have a metal body with a bimetal arm inside that, when heated from the electricity supplied by the oven igniter, bends and opens the oven safety valve so gas can flow out the orifice. They're made with a single valve or a dual valve depending upon the oven. Depending upon the range design, the oven safety valve is usually mounted by the oven burner, which sits right on the gas orifice of the valve. It could also be mounted behind the rear access panel and have a short gas line running into the oven burner. If the oven safety valve has failed, you'll get little to no heat when baking. Depending upon your range, you'll either have to remove the racks, oven bottom, and flame spreader, or go around back and remove the rear access panel. Once you have access to the valve, we can test it for continuity. So set your meter to continuity again. Remove the wires and touch a test probe to each terminal. If it doesn't have continuity, the valve is bad and will have to be replaced. As always, guys, hit those like and subscribe buttons now to help support us making more of these videos. The last thing to check is the oven thermostat. It controls the temperature of the oven. Oven thermostats are used to regulate the temperature of the oven. They have a temperature sensor bulb, a body with the contacts inside, and a shaft for the knob, or a gas body if it's gas. The sensor bulb comes through an opening in the back wall of the oven and is mounted to one of the walls. The thermostat body is right behind the temperature knob on the control panel. Oven thermostats are used on ranges that don't have an electronic control board. The sensor bulb has fluid in it that expands through the capillary tube to the switch body. If the thermostat has gone bad, your gas range could have little to no heat when baking. First, look at the bulb. It should be mounted in the corner of the oven on its mounting brackets and not hanging down. Then inspect the bulb and capillary all the way up to the switch body to make sure it's not leaking, kinked, or damaged in any way. The other way it could fail is if the contacts inside are going bad and power isn't being sent to the igniter when the thermostat is turned on. In order to check that, we'll have to test the thermostat for continuity. Normally there are only 2 wires you'll need to remove. But if yours has more, you'll need to look at the wiring diagram to see which wires go to the bake and broil systems. Touch a probe to each terminal with the thermostat in the off position. It should not have continuity. Then turn the thermostat on. It should have continuity in the on position. If it fails either test or is damaged, it'll have to be replaced. Now here are those safety tips we mentioned earlier. A lot of people are still using aluminum foil to protect their ranges from spills and grease buildup. Although it may seem like a good idea, you may not be aware of the dangers it can pose. Firefighters respond to over 170,000 kitchen fires per year, and failing to keep the range clean is linked to more than 13,000 of those. On electric cooktops, many people cover the drip pans with foil so they don't have to clean them, but this can cause moisture retention, making them rust even faster. It can also block airflow, reflect heat back into the elements, damaging them, or if the foil touches the element, it could be a shock hazard or start a fire. On gas cooktops, wrapping the grates, burner heads, or drip pans in foil can cause heat retention, carbon monoxide poisoning, as well as starting a fire. In general, you'll want to avoid lining the oven with foil because it could block air passages, causing heat buildup that causes poor cooking and increases the dangers of a fire. If the foil gets too hot, it could melt, damaging the oven lining or starting a fire. With electric ovens, putting foil under the element could cause heat to be reflected back into the oven, overcooking the food and possibly damaging the element. If the foil touches the element, it could become a shock hazard. In gas ovens, blocking air passages could affect the burner operation, causing poor cooking and carbon monoxide poisoning. You also don't want to completely cover an oven rack, as this will disrupt the airflow and cause cooking problems. You should only use a small pan on a rack several inches below the food you're cooking to catch drips. Due to these dangers, you don't want to use aluminum foil to try to keep the range clean. You should clean the oven and underneath the cooktop regularly to prevent grease buildup. So keep the foil off the range, keep it clean, and keep an eye on it while you're cooking. Once you take care of the problem, you can plug the appliance in and turn the gas back on. Thanks for joining us for another troubleshooting video brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons now, and if you have any questions or want to share how your repair went, leave a comment down below.